Today, we are going to discuss the use of tags and their companion feature, stickers. As always, we'll start off with some definitions just to make sure we're all on the same page. From there, we'll walk through the 3 different areas of service where tags are utilized and some examples of how to use them in those parts of the database, also ensuring that we cover the different use cases for reporting based on tags in those sections. Lastly, we'll cover the companion feature stickers as they relate in particular to opportunity tags. We'll cover this feature as a tool to engage your volunteers visually and different examples of how to use stickers, and then how they can aid your volunteers in navigating your opportunities. So let's go ahead and get started with tags. At their core, tags are a tool to help you organize 3 different parts of your database using a flexible yet still defined attribute. In particular, tags can be added to volunteers, groups, and opportunities. There are lots of places in Service to store data about all 3 of those entities, but what sets tags apart is their visual nature and their ease of collection. For example, you can add a private note to any of volunteers or groups or opportunities, and those are searchable fields, but that can be tricky to normalize. If you have a typo in your note, or in one case you use shorthand, it would be hard to find all of the relevant or related pieces of information. Tags build on each other to create a database, which you can readily click through to find all associated items. So let's take a look at the 3 parts of the database where tags are used, starting with volunteers. So if we step into searching and managing the volunteer database, you'll see up at the top of the page this button to view the tag cloud. We're going to go into this quite a bit today. This is available all over. You'll even see an option to access the tag cloud in the navigation bar up at the top of the page. Under the profile icon, you can go into view the tag cloud. You can also directly search for tags here. We'll kind of come back to this later. But the tag cloud shows you all of the tags that you have in your database in all 3 sections. So starting with volunteer tags, kind of what can these be used for? Really, it's up to you. Tags by themselves are hidden from volunteers. So you can identify sets of volunteers using information that you would like to then be able to kind of quickly collect or identify, run searches by, send emails, run reports. Pretty standard examples might be identifying all of your staff members. So you can kind of at a glance engage with those accounts. Or perhaps you want to identify all of the people who are a part of a particular committee or are your board members. You can also use tags to identify information like when you do a data import. You can add a tag to identify that set of accounts that were imported or adjusted during that action. You can really use these however you'd like to. What is great about them is that they're kind of normalized. So whenever you go into a volunteer's profile, so let's just go and look at my newer volunteers here that I've labeled. If I go into manage a volunteer's account, up at the top of this page, I will see all of the associated tags on that person's profile. You can obviously remove tags from here if something was added in error or if you just wanted to adjust those. You can also click on a tag here to run a search based on that tag. And then to the right, you can add those in. So if we want to add a new tag to this person, let's say we want to say that this volunteer is one of our coaches. I could go and start typing a tag. The system is searching. Does this tag already exist? So as I'm typing here, you can see on the right-hand side, it's kind of searching for any tags associated with that language. In my case, I've not made this tag previously, so I'm going to be making a new tag ultimately. When I click on Add Tag here, it'll create that tag. It will normalize sort of the way that it's structured or formatted. All of your tags will be lowercase. The system will also remove spaces or other punctuation to replace that with underscores. And then this now becomes a searchable entity. And I can obviously go and add this to other people's profiles if I want to. So now if I go into a different volunteer's account, let's say this person's also one of my coaches, I can click into manage his profile. Up at the top, click on add volunteer tag, and then start typing. And now that we've created that tag, it's going to get suggested. And I can click here to add that in. And then again, I have now this tag on 2 volunteer accounts. I can quickly search for those people, send emails, run reports, take different bulk actions using that set of information. A couple things to note about these tags in particular. So if we go back in, obviously we were managing on an individual basis, adding tags to volunteer accounts. You can also do this in bulk. So if we search for a set of individuals, maybe who participated in a particular event and need to have some kind of marker added to their profile, I can go and search for a set of individuals, manually select them like this, or maybe select the whole slew of people that I searched for. But ultimately, I can use the dropdown at the top of the page for bulk actions, and I can go into update these volunteer profiles. So update selected volunteer profiles. And down towards the bottom of this page is an option to add or remove tags. So I can go in here, say I want to add a tag. Maybe all of these people were a part of an import. I could go and give that a label. Typically when I do this, I also identify the date when that was completed. But we can go ahead and add that tag in. And now all of those people have that tag on their profile. Now perhaps we did something in error. One of the nice things about tags is that they're pretty malleable. It's easy to actually kind of temporarily use tags as well. So for example, I could go and run a search, like a complex search for a set of individuals based on, participation options. Did they participate within a certain time frame? When was the last time they came in? How many hours have they served? Some kind of complex search. And after running that search, I could go and add a tag to all of those people's profiles. And then I can use that tag as the basis for another search. So if I kind of wanted to like half save that search so I can use it or kind of build off of it later, in the advanced volunteer search, you can use tags as either an assigned or not assigned search. So you can find people who do or do not have a tag. So it kind of makes creating inverse searches pretty straightforward. You can really create very complex searches with the use of tags. But one thing is you might want to run a complex search, use a particular tag just kind of as an intermediary step, and then remove that later. You don't necessarily need to use a bulk action to remove the tag. I could search for everyone who has a tag, then use that bulk update feature and remove it as well. But if I'm just trying to purge that from the database, I can also go into the tag cloud and say, okay, I'm done using this. I'm going to delete the tag, and then it would remove it from the database as a whole. Only administrators can do this, obviously, but then that would remove it from the system, and volunteers would not have that on their profile at all anymore. So again, there's a variety of ways to utilize tags on the volunteer database, either as like an intermediary step when searching, or kind of as an end result when identifying sets of volunteers. There's no limit to the number of tags that can be in the system, so you can really kind of go wild with adding a lot of information here. Obviously, what's usable or useful to you is kind of where I would stop. But you can do a lot of different things with this information, and they are not visible to volunteers, as a reminder. As with anything in Service, you can also use these tags then to run searches and then to run reports. So there's not any particular reporting specifically designated for tags on the volunteer database side, but you can go and run a search and then move into the report management tool and say, use my previous search as the query, and now only that set of volunteers is going to show up in this report. So we'll see the same kind of theming throughout both groups and opportunities as we get to those as well. Basically, anything you can search by in Service is reportable, and tags are just a very easy way to run searches or to create very complex searches as well. Okay, so that's kind of tagging in the volunteer database side of the system. Again, a major sort of function of them is that they are a little bit more visual. When you click to view someone's profile or manage someone's account, tags are going to be included up at the top of the page. So they're just kind of a very quick way to get some information. And again, you can always click on those tags to run searches. So if you're looking for sets of individuals, this is just an easy way to kind of group them together. Okay, one more kind of feature related to specifically volunteer tags is that when you create an opportunity in Service, you may have seen under the advanced options, there are some items to assign different metrics or items to a volunteer's profile when they either register for or participate in this opportunity. And tags is one of those things. So I created a tag called coaches. I could assign that to a specific opportunity. And when a volunteer registers for this event, they will have this tag added to their profile. It's just kind of another way to automatically attribute something to a volunteer's account based on what they're participating in. Of course, you can always go and run searches retroactively, who was a part of this event or who participated last year. But if you're already doing that kind of stuff, this just automates that step, makes it an easier way to kind of group that information together. Okay, one specific use case for this I want to point out is identifying like committee members or board members. Obviously, you might just build them in manually in some cases, but perhaps you have like a private event that represents a meeting for that particular committee or board. You could add a tag that identifies that set of individuals, and then any person who registers for that private event, like you've sent them a private invite link, any of those people who sign up would have that tag added to their profile. Okay, so that is kind of the volunteer side of utilizing tags. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways to think about this, but let's go ahead and move into the next part of the database. If you do have questions about particular use cases, of course, please feel free to write those in. Under attributes, we have the group management section. This is another part of the database where tags can be utilized. In this specific use case, I prefer to use tags to identify sets of groups. That's kind of the intention here. So for example, I have in my system 3 groups that are associated with one organization or one corporate partner that I'm working with, just different branches or just different departments. So in this case, I might tag all 3 of these groups as being community bank. That way I can search for them as a set and then engage either the members of that group independently or engage the contacts of those groups. So I can email all the contacts at one time, or perhaps run a report. Maybe my partner with this organization has asked for a report on all the hours that they've served across all of their different departments or branches in this case. I could easily run a search for all of the groups associated with a particular tag and then use that as a basis for a report. So that's one kind of strong use case for tags on groups. Now, where you add those tags is one of 2 places, either when you are initially creating the group. So if we go up under standard options, click on add new group. As you're adding in a group to the system, tags are down at the bottom and you can just start typing here. If you already have a tag that matches, it'll kind of populate again like what we were talking about previously. You can just click on that to select it, and then you can add a comma and keep typing those in. So maybe I want to say this is a bank in particular, or perhaps I wanted to identify that community bank or community partner, or some tag that I've already created previously. Again, you can just kind of write those out through here. So you can add as many tags as you need to. A very common use case for these tags, apart from just identifying a set of groups, like a particular corporate partner, if you have a larger organization that works with you, is to identify types of groups. So for example, perhaps this group that I'm creating right now is actually a school group. I might want to identify that specifically, or perhaps it's a youth group, or perhaps it's a church. You can add in a tag like that. Again, these are not visible to volunteers. They're not visible to your group contacts by default. But this is a way for you to identify sets of groups. So if you want to run some searches and reports at the end of the year to identify kind of where your major partnerships are and how many hours are being served by sets of groups, this can be a helpful way to kind of group them together. So again, you can add tags when you're creating a new group, but you can also add tags after a group has been created, and you can do this in bulk as well, right? So we have this group here, or these 3 groups rather, for community bank. We can select those 3, and then under the bulk actions, just like we kind of did on the volunteer side, we can say update selected groups. And from there, we can say, let's add some tags here. And I just might want to add 1 tag, but let's just add 2 in this case. We'll say all of these are banks. And in particular, they are all a part of that corporate partner community bank. And then I also have a corporate partner tag, so we could add that into. So we can do different things here to kind of introduce additional items if we want to. So we'll go ahead and add those in. And then basically these will just get added to all 3 of those groups in one step. It's going to ask us to confirm the action, and then we can add those in. Okay, so that's one place to add those in. We can also do this after the fact on an existing group. If we click into update or edit a group, then from here, actually, sorry, let me back up. We click on the manage option for that group. And then this is similar to what we see on the volunteer side as well. There's a set of tags at the top. We have the tag cloud, the tags that currently exist on those groups. And then on the right, an option to add tags in. And we can do the same sort of action through here. So if we want to create another tag or add an existing tag, we just start typing and then it'll add that in. Okay. Just like on the volunteer side, these tags can be used to run searches, and those tags can then be used to run reports, right? So any search you run can ultimately be used as a query, at least on the custom participation report. So if we want to run a search for a set of groups, I can identify them by, if it's all youth groups that I'm looking for, or schools or churches or whatever, that I'm searching for. I can run that search through here, or I can use the tag cloud like we looked at previously. And then from there, I can go back into reporting and tell the system to use my previous group search. Perhaps I want to see all the members of those groups. I can use that as a basis for a search as well. There's different ways to kind of utilize them. So I do want to point out that member search as well. In the group management side, if I search for a set of groups and I want to view all the people who are a member of any of those groups, I can select all of them from here, and then I can say show members of selected groups. So this would just pull a list of any person who's a member of any of those groups. And then I can use kind of the combination of those 2 queries. So the group search as well as the volunteer search to only look at bulk registrations completed by those groups and any other registrations completed by individuals within those groups. This is a pretty inclusive report because it will show any hours attributed to the system by any members of those groups, even if they came in independently. But sometimes that is a useful search because a corporate partner might want to know, what are my volunteers doing, even if they're coming in independently. There are other ways to exclude those individuals' hours, primarily using reservation codes. We do have some videos on kind of how to do that using reservation codes and groups specifically. But if you have questions about that, obviously, please feel free to write in. Okay, so that's the group side of the system. The third place where groups can be, or where tags, can be utilized is in opportunities. So under opportunity management, when you are creating a new opportunity, you will see an option under advanced options to add in opportunity tags. And then you will also obviously see this as you are engaging with your existing opportunities. So let's go ahead and move there. As we're looking at an existing event in the system, if we click on the name of the event or click into manage it, both of those take us to sort of this managerial page for that event. And on this page, we can see all of the tags that we've added previously. And of course, we can add more tags in as well. This option is the same as what we've been seeing throughout the database. So if we want to add another tag here and say this event is good for new volunteers, I've created a tag for that previously. So when I start typing, it's going to suggest that, and we can go ahead and add that in. Now, just like in the volunteer database and on the group side of the system, these tags are not visible to volunteers by default. However, we can apply stickers to them to make them visible. We'll talk about those stickers more in a moment. That's kind of the companion feature portion of this. But I want to talk about kind of the use cases for tags first. Some of these tags I might want to be internal. For example, I have created in my database some tags to represent, for example, events that apply to a particular grant, right? This is something that I would like to use internally. I want to be able to search for all of my events that have this specific tag and then use that to then go and run a report. So I can click on that tag from the tag cloud. I can go back over to report management. I can say, use my previous opportunity search as a query. And now I'm only looking at those events within whatever date range I'm searching, right? So if you're applying for grants where there's kind of select events that specifically apply that you want to be able to kind of run a search for, then a tag is a great way to group those together because there doesn't have to necessarily be other information that's searchable in the database that relates to those events. You can just add a tag to all the disparate options. You can also use opportunity tags to limit visibility of opportunities in your sign-in console. This is getting a little bit in the weeds, but this is a very useful tool, so I want to point this out. When you open the sign-in console, which just as a quick definition, this is used as a digital kiosk to have volunteers check in or track attendance. But when you open the sign-in console, you can tell the system to use a tag as a filter. So only a specific set of events will appear in this sign-in console. So if you have a specific set of events that you want to be available in the sign-in console, you can tag them as such, and then you can use this filter to limit what shows up on this particular device. Or perhaps you have multiple areas where a volunteer can sign in for an event, but you only want the relevant events to show up. Again, you can tag them based on, these events are on this side of the building, and we have a sign-in console specifically for those events. You could tag them and then use that as a filter. Okay, the other kind of idea behind tags on opportunities is the ability to create stickers and then share those with your volunteers. So tags, again, by default, are not visible to volunteers, not something that volunteers can engage with. But if we go into the tag cloud, we can add stickers to opportunity tags in particular. You're not going to see this option with volunteers or group tags. But if we click in here to apply a tag sticker on an existing tag, we can click on that icon, and then it'll ask us for a sticker display name. This will be displayed to your volunteers. Usually I make this just kind of a more legible version of what the tag itself is. This is what your volunteers are kind of generally engaging with. Now, there is a world where volunteers can technically see the tag itself, so I wouldn't make this language too obfuscated, but they're typically engaging with the display name itself. Below that, you can pick what icon you'd like to use. There are a whole host of options in here, so you can feel free to kind of glance through this and figure out which works best for you. If you have any thoughts or ideas like, hey, it'd be kind of nice if we had this sort of icon or something representing this idea, please feel free to submit a ticket. We do tend to add these relatively frequently, and we're happy to take your suggestions. But there's a lot of options in here, so I would peruse through this first. But once you've identified the icon you'd like to use, then at the bottom, you can select a status for this sticker. You can make it displayed to volunteers. You can make it admin only, or you can make it displayed and searchable. This means that volunteers can actually click on this sticker and find all the events that also have that same sticker that are publicly available. So if we add this in here, I'm going to apply this sticker, then we can, let's actually back out and show the volunteer side of the system. So we're going to log out here and go to the event listing page. On your event listing page, your volunteers will see any stickers that you've created, and they can mouse over them to get kind of a larger view of the friendly name or the display name of that sticker. And then if you've made it searchable, a volunteer can click on that to view all of the events that also have that sticker. So they can kind of do some filtering on their own without necessarily having to open up the filter or search options and then engage from there. So this is just a really helpful tool, in my opinion, for creating searchable ways for your volunteers to engage with your opportunities a little bit more visually. And they might get used to looking for a particular icon because your volunteers might, recognize, oh, I don't mind these events that have heavy lifting as an attribute, or I need to find the events that have childcare provided, or I need to find the events that are family friendly. So they could kind of get accustomed to looking for those particular icons as well. What these represent, how you phrase this, what icon you use, obviously that's entirely up to you. Frequently, we see things like accessibility featured in these icons, but sometimes it's also useful to point out attributes about the event, like this event is outdoors, this event is indoors, this event requires a lot of standing, different information like that can also be a pretty relevant piece of data here. One kind of piece of information I like to suggest is that these should kind of represent not necessarily all of your events, right? If all of your events have the exact same stickers, then that might kind of be overkill, and your volunteers might, lose out on the extra piece of information that they should be looking for, right? If everything has all the same stickers, then things won't necessarily stand out if they have something a little bit different. So I like to highlight things that aren't necessarily always present, right? If all of your events are wheelchair accessible, it might be better to just communicate that at the top of the page as opposed to having that on every single event. Although, of course, that is entirely up to you. It's a choice as you're creating your opportunities. Okay, so as we can see, volunteers can engage with these stickers through here, but I did want to point out as well that you can use those stickers when you embed service into a website. You can create buttons or links that actually go to directly a particular set of events using a tag. This is actually true whether or not the sticker is present. You can use tags to create filtered event listing pages. If it does have a sticker associated with it, obviously that will be highlighted and your volunteers will see it, but you can also use tags in a more hidden sense to create like a landing page for a particular set of events. Like perhaps you might tag all of your seasonal opportunities and then create a special landing page on your website for seasonal opportunities or offerings. It doesn't have to necessarily be a sticker that volunteers can see. You can still create a filtered landing page using that tag. Okay, the last thing that I wanted to point out about these stickers is that they are still visible on the admin side. So if we go into search and manage existing opportunities, you will see those stickers represented here as well, which also means that you can use these to run searches too. So you can click on those stickers and quickly run a search, which again is a very nice way to be able to filter your opportunities. If you've identified one opportunity within a set and you'd like to see all of the opportunities within that set, you can just click on a sticker here to create that filter as opposed to going and running a search. So they can also help you in identifying sets of events and quickly running searches in your database. Of course, I do also want to point out, you can always save searches. So if you have a complex set of events that you're looking for, you can, identify those sets of volunteers or sets of opportunities, by running your search and then save it, give it a title, and then you can rerun that whenever you need to by clicking on Load Saved Search. This is true for tags and any other search that you might run. But I did want to point that out as well. That is a very useful tool. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for what I wanted to cover today. I did get one question that I'd like to point out, which was just highlighting how do we bulk update tags on volunteer accounts? And that's an excellent question, very relevant. Let me show you an example. So let's say I want to identify all of the volunteers who participated in this build day that we had as maybe being construction-oriented volunteers. I could select this event either on this page, and then in the drop-down here, I can run a search. There, I can go and view all the registered volunteers, or I could go into view the registered volunteers, select all these people, and then down at the bottom, click to view those or manage those selected volunteers. Whatever the case may be, however I wind up running a search, again, I could go through the advanced volunteer search, run a set for a set of individuals. But ultimately, once I've run a search, I can select all those results. And then in the drop down for bulk actions, I can select to update those selected volunteer profiles, click the corresponding button here. And then down towards the bottom, we have the option to add volunteer tags. Again, you can also remove tags, but in this case, let's talk about adding them. So if we select that, click on select items to bulk update. From here, then I can write in whatever my tag is. Again, if I've done something previously, like we did that coaches tag earlier, using this same method, we can search that through here. Or if I'm creating something new, I mentioned the idea of identifying construction volunteers, right? So I could just create that tag, click on update volunteer information. It'll ask me if, basically to confirm I'm updating 20 people's profiles, I'm adding this tag in. I can click on yes, proceed with bulk update, and then that will add that information into those volunteer accounts. So we can verify that too. If we click in to manage any of these people's profiles, we will see that tag now at the top of the page. And of course, we can click to search by that information. So just to clarify as well, that same sort of bulk action. So we bulk added tags to volunteers in this case. We can also bulk add tags in the group database, and we can bulk add tags in the opportunity database. So you might be sitting in the scenario where you've already created all of your events, they've been in the system for a long time, but you haven't yet done any of these tags and you want to start using stickers. You can bulk update this information. So you could search for a set of events, or you could just go through and kind of cherry pick. You can select, which ones need to have this new sticker or new tag added. So you can go through and select those items. I do want to point out that if your results are paginated, so if you have more than 25 events on one page, or same thing on the volunteer side, the system will remember those selections. So just to show you kind of what I'm talking about, in the volunteer database, let's say I've searched for a large set of individuals. I have multiple pages of results here. If I select people from one page and then I go to the next page and I select some more people, the system will remember that. So I selected these 3 people here, and if we go back to page 1, we can see those people down at the bottom that I'd selected. So it will remember those selections. So you can kind of go through all the results and then back up at the top of the page when you do a bulk update. Again, this is true on the volunteer side as well as what we were just looking at on the event side. If you go in to do a bulk update, it will remember those selections. So even like here, I navigated away from this page and came back to it, and those results are still selected. But we can go into update those opportunities, and then down towards the bottom under advanced options, we can add in tags after the fact. Okay, so we covered today tags and stickers. Implementing these features is pretty straightforward. It's just an additional way to search through the different parts of the database, add some information that you find relevant, that you would like to be able to run searches and therefore send emails or run reports or possibly filter different parts of the system like the sign-in console or filter your event listing page. It's pretty straightforward to implement. There are just a lot of different ways to do it. So I'm sure the gears are turning and you're already thinking of different ways to implement both tags and stickers. But as always, if you have any questions about this feature or anything else within the console, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. With that, I want to point out the resources available to you. As always, you can, of course, continue asking questions right now. We'll leave the webinar open for a little bit to make sure those get answered. But you can also use the Need Help button whenever you're logged into your account to contact our support team. You can search for topics through here. Let's say you want to learn more about stickers. You can see articles that have to do with that. I typically prefer to pop these out, but you can also read them in here. And then you can always click on the Contact Us button at the bottom, no matter what you've searched by, in order to engage with our customer support team. You can submit tickets through here. And then, of course, we also have all of our previously recorded webinars and a lot of tutorials on our YouTube channel. If you go to video.servicetech.com, That'll take you here. And of course, you can feel free to peruse this. We have some playlists for administrators primarily, although we do have some resources for volunteers as well. And with that, I want to thank you again for joining today. It's a pleasure to see you in the chat. I know I've met with a lot of you directly, so thank you very much for joining. As a reminder, if you do have more questions, we will leave this open for a little bit here, so please feel free to continue asking your questions, or of course, you can contact our support with that support tool. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.